Can we go out of order and take Area Agency on Aging first? Lori has to.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, let's open the Human Services Committee meeting. Any courtesy of the floor?
Okay.
Wait. Nope, okay. There's been a request to switch the order, so we're going to have the update on Area Agency on Aging Division.
Thank you.
Now you're up.
Okay. I'm Lori Grieco from Northampton County Aging. I'm the Deputy Administrator. I've been covering for John since he fell ill. Since he fell ill, the main priority has been the Protective Services, F, that we had received. I did call the Department of Aging when I took over and let them know that I was covering for him and asked them to bring me up to speed on where we were with the corrective action plan and what kind of things I needed to be doing. They had sent me a consumer listing report and a spreadsheet to review and go over and to submit to them. So on 2/1, on February 1st, I had sent them the listing report, and that documented that all the consumers that were past, thank you, past due and out of compliance, that they had been seen, that we had met with them, made sure that risk was minimized or mitigated, and they weren't just lost in the shuffle. On February 6th, they did approve the corrective action plan. Based on that, they felt confident that we were doing the things that we needed to do. Prior to February 22nd, when they were coming out for some technical assistance, there was a spreadsheet that I had to complete, and that's actually more of a working tool because that's not all the way completed yet. But with that tool, we had to indicate that they were seeing who the care manager was and what risk was identified and if and how it was mitigated. We're still going through files, but everyone has been seen. In the original plan from the state, they had wanted all past documentation to be put in the SAM system, our computer system. But based on the backlog and everything that had happened, they were willing to accept us just indicating that the notes were in the hard file, that we could just confirm that and put that in the SAM system. So that's what we're going through right now, just making sure everything is done and as it needs to be, and then we're documenting it accordingly.
Could I just stop you for 1 minute?
Mm-hmm.
And could you just state what the actual the dings were for, what the issues were? Because I don't know that anyone's ever articulated what those issues were.
The issues were cases being open. Typically, they're on a 20-day time frame. The person needs to be seen, risk needs to be mitigated, and the case needs to be closed. It can go past that. Some cases just take longer, especially financial cases, to gather financial documentation and things like that. So our deficiencies were really surrounding the fact that the documentation was not in the computer. The people were seen, the residents were all seen, and there's notes in the hard files, but they were not put into the SAM system.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The last thing we'd done prior to their technical assistance visit was going through and gathering up case files from the administrator's office. And they're currently in a file cabinet in my office, a locked file cabinet, and we're going through them one at a time to make sure that they're current and bringing them up to speed and processing them the way that they need to be processed. So on the 22nd, our protective services specialist came out and they provided guidance, gave us some new training materials, and the visit was very positive, and I've been communicating with them pretty much weekly with questions and seeking clarification. So moving forward, to prevent any issues in the future, I have reached out to Lehigh County AAA. Their PS was very supportive of everything that was going on, and they had reached out to me as well. They provided us with some working tools to use. I currently have a new spreadsheet that I put on the computer, and that I'm using for tracking. So whenever I assign a report a need, I can put the worker and then the date, and it helps me just right there on my desktop to see where we're at. I also worked with IT to get that on our shared drive, and it's in a secure folder, so all the protective services workers have access to that. So if I would not be in the office and they assign a case to themselves, they can add it to that spreadsheet. Nothing kind of gets lost that way. We also have our report of need, which is the initial referral tool. We had that in a PDF form so that our IRIS department, when they take a referral of suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation, they type it right into the PDF and they email it to me securely. and then I can have that, and I can get that put right in the computer and assigned to a caseworker right away. So that prevents a delay. If, you know, a report comes in on a Friday afternoon or something like that, or over a holiday, that I doesn't have to wait until I'm back in the office again to process that. Because we do also have time frames of how quickly to see people. Some people need to be seen within 24 hours, within 48 hours. So that keeps us in compliance with that. We also made a change that all protective services referrals are now taken by IRIS department. Prior to that, some of the new referrals would come up to the aging office, and the protective services workers would have to take these referrals and input them in the computer and process them. And with the issue being that their documentation had fallen behind, that was really taking up a chunk of their time, because you could be on the phone for a good half hour with someone to take a referral and process everything. And I actually had supervision with them today, and they said that that's made a huge difference in their time, that they don't have to answer those calls and take them, and IRIS does all that. The voicemail for our AAA office has been modified to indicate to people if they're calling to make a report of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, that they're to call IRIS directly, so they're not even leaving voicemails for us, because again, that could cause a delay if we're not in the office and then the message doesn't get retrieved right away. We have a new PS worker that we've hired. She'll be officially trained in April. That's mid-April. That's a week-long training that the state offers. So until then, she's going to be assisting me going through past case files, and she'll also be shadowing the other PS workers to learn her position. Most recently, I've had a discussion with data entry on how to work and run the reports to make sure that things are where they need to be. And it is a bit of a challenge, and we are struggling with that because of setting the parameters for those reports. So that's actually a work in progress. Even the forms that the state had sent us, the spreadsheet and the listing report, they had different people on them, because just based on how you set the parameters, it might not bring up the same people. So we're working on that as well. That might require some state involvement. So that's where we're at with protective services. The other major hurdle right now are our senior centers. We just have quite a few vacancies. Our director just retired, and we have our 10 senior centers that need to be overseen. But all the vacant positions are posted. 2 of them are down, and we're waiting to schedule the interviews because they're civil service. We're waiting for the list to come back. The director position just came down on Friday, and there were over 50 people interested in that position.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very hopeful that by the end of the month we'll be interviewing for that. And a food service worker position is posted until the 22nd, and that position will involve not just helping serve lunch to the consumers, but also cleaning the sites, which is a need right now. That's something that's not necessarily being done as often as it should. There's also a food processing program that we need to get compliant with on the computer to work with Graysdale and our dietary to serving lunch at the centers. And we're having a lot of assistance from IT and getting that up to speed, making sure it's current. And then when the senior center director position gets filled, they'll be making sure that that stays compliant and up to date. So that's where we're at, and just to say that everyone, especially since John has fallen ill, the AAA staff, our peers in human services, and our administration has been wonderful and supportive and helpful. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I have one quick one, and then just kudos to you for stepping up and taking care of all this, because I'm sure it was very difficult, and it sounds like you've done a great job. How does the reporting for aging compare with some of the stuff that we've heard with children and youth? Because I understand the standards from the state are much more stringent with, child protective services. So are they comparable with these adults, or are they a little bit different?
I'm really not familiar with the children and youth requirements.
I don't know that I can answer your question specifically enough without getting more information. There are certainly times with children and youth cases that we have to see the children even sooner than the 24 hours, if that's what you're...
Right. I just meant in terms of the timeliness and the case management and the paperwork, because it sounds like the paperwork is where a lot of the issues are, and the tracking.
I think it's safe to say that both divisions have a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, and there are, depending on how the case is prioritized, if it's emergent, then they need to be seen immediately, and that would need to be reflected in the case notes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Graysdale?
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started if that's all right. Starting with admissions. Just to let you know, we are definitely doing very well with our admissions. We're at 672.2, and we're currently at an average census of in the mid to high 670s. Today we are at 673. Really good news is that if you look at the fourth line down, you will see our Medicare ADC. Our days has improved from 33.2 to 43.3 in our Medicare. And that's probably the highest I've ever seen since I've been working at Graysdale. Any other questions on admissions before I move to finance? Oh, that's really good because normally we're probably, I think, at about 27 beds, but the fact that we're at 43 is not double, but close to it, of what we were doing before. So that's much more higher Medicare, more Medicare dollars.
But does that bring in more money?
Yes. Yes, that's reimbursement. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? Yes. No? Okay. All right. With regards to finance and Medicare reimbursement, the most important things to look at is probably the third line down. We have gone from 108.2 to 100.3 in our accounts receivable, so they are reducing, meaning we're getting money that's owed to us a lot sooner. We can also equate the addition of business office staff in there, including a new staff member who deals with our Medicaid applications. So that's helpful to us as well. If you look at our CMI case mix index, we are holding at 0.87. However, we should be a little bit higher come next month because of assessments that are coming in for the end of the month. Any other finance questions before I move to probably next I'll be talking about nursing.
Just one question on finance. Yes. The end of the year financial statements, I believe last year unaudited was I think a $460,000 operating deficit. Has that changed, or do you expect it to change substantially when the audited numbers come back?
I expect it to change. I don't want to give you numbers now because we still have to be sure, but we definitely will be seeing an upswing with that. Better. There's been more collections. Actually, very successful collections. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I do, because I'm awake now.
On finance, I know in the past there was a problem with, I'd say, bad debt collection, going after somebody was in and going to get, resources,
Right.
Assets. Is that something that's actively done now as part of the day-to-day operations? Finance?
Oh, yes, it is. We have an accounts receivable meeting where we look to see what accounts are in debt and what we can do in the process that we have to take. We also work well with Kennedy Law, which is our
Okay.
vendor that helps, assist us with collections when necessary.
That's great. I mean, there was a time that they would write off way too soon, I thought, and there wasn't really an aggressive push to do that, but I'm glad that that's what we do.
Oh,
now.
yeah, no, there's definitely a much more aggressive,
Good.
and I also
good.
get involved myself at times, and
Yeah.
we'll make phone calls to families.
All right, thank you. I
Sure.
appreciate
Yes. The cost of, it does go up a little bit. It
It
depends
goes up
on.
$50, so if you, 50 times 500, that's, a lot.
Yeah.
So why, that's a significant amount. So why is there such a discrepancy from month to month?
Well, it also, if you remember, we talked about an increase in the number of Medicare residents. So that means we get so much from Medicare, just as we do from Medicaid and managed care. So for that, they might require increased services, equipment, pharmacy, things like that, which could cause some of the costs to go up a little bit more. So even though we do make more money, it can also cost us money, depending on the resident and their condition.
So is there a calculation on this page that shows that offset between the increase in cost due to the patients, the different kinds of patients you have, and why the price goes up per resident?
Yeah, I would just have to speak with the finance department to get specifics on that for you.
Okay. I'm just wondering, because it seems like a significant amount that's different from month to month.
Yeah, again, it can depend on the
Yeah.
resident that we take. I mean, if they're more clinically complex and they have more, require more, like I said, equipment, treatments, medications, it can go up.
But that's not because of staffing per person, because of the increase?
No,
Okay.
no.
Just ask.
Oh, sure. Any other questions before? Yes.
Ray, maybe you can bring us up to speed on the short-term units, how they're doing right now.
Well, I mean, they are doing pretty well. We are pretty much full in the units. And, they do have a higher level of staffing than the other units because of the turnover, but we are doing very well overall on the units. Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you.
We may have one bed or something, but it's usually full as soon as we have it open.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, do you want to?
Okay, thank you. All right, in terms of our, in terms of nursing, we have, our PPD remains at 2.9, which is under the budget of 3.2. However, we have many recruiting strategies in conjunction with Human Resources, Nursing Administration, Premier's Director of Marketing, everything we can do to go ahead and promote jobs. We actually had a really good session the other day with the Northampton Community College and what they're doing with their graduates and looking for employment at Graysdale. So these are all very positive things that we're doing for recruitment of our staff. In addition to advertising, Twitter, things along those lines, just really getting out there with Facebook.
But are we competitive salary-wise? Or is this a problem, getting people?
Well, I have to say, in many...
And what can we do about it?
Yeah. In many of the interviews that we've had recently with the Assistant Director of Nursing, she has been comparing salaries, particularly CNAs, and she found that we are just as competitive with the CNA. She just reported that to me yesterday. RNs, we can do a little bit better, but we're doing everything we can in terms of recruiting them.
Where's don't we have a huge turnover in the CNAs?
Yeah.
Where's the most turnover?
Well, if you look at the second page, the turnover.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I will get to
Okay.
that, though, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. In terms of our overtime, if you take a look, our RN overtime has decreased, and our LPN and CNA overtime has increased slightly on the nursing. The agencies remain the same. We're continuing to utilize that to cover the nursing positions that haven't been filled yet. Any other questions about nursing before I move on? No? Okay.
No.
Next is our compliance and risk. We did not have in February any visits from the Department of Health, so there were no deficiencies.
Good.
Yes.
Yay.
Next, we go, if there's no other questions, excuse me,
No, we're good.
we go to quality measures. Our quality measures are trending upward with the exception of antipsychotic medication utilization and weight loss. If you take a look at the numbers there, also pressure ulcers are trending upward, and our infection control rate and facility-acquired infections are trending downward.
Can we talk about the pressure ulcers? Because they seem to be continuing up. So is there any reason, or have you done any research on that? Or
We have done research. There are many reasons, not just one, not particular to one situation, as to why they could be going up. We are looking at them more thoroughly, doing a root cause analysis to get a better understanding of what's happening, but there are several different issues that can occur with that, that can cause the increase in pressure ulcers.
can you say what some of those
Well, I mean,
early findings are, I
yeah,
guess?
early findings. I mean, we're looking at turning and positioning. We're also looking at the residents' diet to make sure, because they have to have a certain amount of protein so they don't have the skin breakdown. We also have other issues, that we're looking at to see, if where they're laying is okay as well.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just they're if they're comfortable in their beds and things like that, and also looking at the type of covering for them to make them more comfortable.
Did you want to ask?
Yeah, and is the turnover, does that have anything to do with pressure, with those sores? Because we're short-staffed and they can't get to them in a timely manner?
Well, I mean, we look to see if there are issues like that. We right now can't really say that is definitively what it is. I can't tell you,
sure.
oh yeah, that's definitely it, but it's definitely a factor that we're looking at to see what's going on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, along the lines, what she asked, the patient ratio to the nurses, is it in line with, or is it getting in line, or with, the national average or the county average or whatever it should be?
Yeah, it is in line.
And I didn't see that on here. I was waiting to hear that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's over the state average. It is.
Okay.
The state average is 2.7. It's at 2.9.
Oh, great. That's for nurse, or is that for all staff?
All nursing staff.
All staff.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, nurses, LPN.
So if you break
RNs.
it down, are we doing good all the way around then?
Well, we're definitely above the state average.
For the total picture.
Right.
But if you break each one out,
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
they're-
so your orderlies and your,
right. Well, yeah, for the CNAs, I mean, we do have positions available that we're trying to fill, and also for the RNs. LPNs seem to be holding steadily.
thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes.
One more question. Sure. If you're saying we're above the state average, are you counting everyone who works there, or just people who directly take care of the
Yes.
nurses?
Just the nurses.
Just the nursing,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Direct
what- yeah.
patient care.
Right.
Okay.
Not housekeepers or
Right,
dietary workers,
okay,
anything
I
like
don't
that.
Or administration, or, okay.
Anyone who does direct care on the residents.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess my concern is I kind of hear you saying that it's not the nursing, because like you said, you're looking at this root cause analysis, and it's not quite staffing related. So is it like, I guess, is there any other reasons why it might be happening? Because, I mean, I think the general population might think that it would be, they're not being up enough or being turned enough, and I'm hearing that that's not what it is.
Listen, I'm horrified by this, because it's 2 months in a row now
Okay.
where these wounds have gone up.
Right.
And I think, based on the questions that I've been asking them, it's multifactorial. You're right.
Right.
It is some staffing. It is, and that goes to positioning, right?
Right.
It's maybe the use of inappropriate undergarments, maybe a little bit of that.
Okay.
So you have that. But the very interesting thing happened at the end of last year, and I understand that correlation is not causation, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But we introduced new mattresses into Graysdale at the end of September. And, our staffing levels are relatively similar to what they were throughout 2017
Okay.
in 2018, although the 3 to 11 hours have dropped. That's a fact. So we didn't see this spike in wounds throughout 2017, but as soon as the new mattresses were introduced at the end of December 2017, in the beginning of 2018, in January and February,
Wow.
we've seen the wounds increase dramatically. Now, my understanding is, and you can ask Mr. Soto, and I believe we have other people here from Graysdale who could answer your question specifically, because Lamont doesn't know the facts. Lamont's just gathering them, but they do know the facts. These mattresses, I believe you spent more than $500,000 on them? Yes. Yeah, more than $500,000 on new mattresses. The contract was executed by the previous director of administration,
Right.
who had absolutely no nursing home experience,
Right.
and certainly had never purchased any institutional beds. And my understanding is that there is a policy for purchasing mattresses at Graysdale that wasn't followed in this process.
I'm looking at Ray.
So they know the facts of how this all went down. But my understanding is one mattress was brought in, and one person tried out the mattress, and then the mattresses were purchased and introduced into the home. So I mean, they know the facts of, and I want you to hear from them, so that if we find out these other changes that we're about to make with staffing, with the use of appropriate undergarments. So if it's the undergarments, we'll find out that quickly, because you'll hear, I think, that they've made a change in that regard. So we should see the wounds drop pretty quickly if it's not mattress related. But we're also experiencing some falls that we know are specifically related to the mattresses. Yeah.
Falls?
Because
Yes,
of the
falls.
height?
What do you mean?
Or
Out of bed.
Because of what?
because of the height?
No,
or-
They're slippery
because
mattresses?
that they're adjustable essentially.
Oh,
Yeah.
Inflating.
Inflating. Yeah.
they're inflated?
Yes.
To the-
Yes, because you have to adjust the mattress to the contour of the person who's in it and I think Ray could speak to that a little more. So I'm
okay.
getting into the weeds on stuff I don't know about, but there is this correlation between the introduction of the new mattresses and an increase in wounds and an increase in falls, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Wow.
We're all over it, and we're going to continue to be. But
Got to get the My Pillow guy.
Yeah. Sealy or Cirque?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right.
I'm just kind of, yeah,
Neither.
what did you say?
Inflatable.
Sealy or Cirque?
Because none of us are buying those mattresses,
Or
right?
My Pillow.
We,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
No.
Towards the end of last year, we were told that we were getting new furniture and new mattresses. Myself and the assistant administrator at the time, Susan Edwards, was involved in the picking out of the furniture for the short-term rehab unit. It was supposed to start with short-term rehab, and then it was going to go throughout the house. New actual bed frames, new actual wardrobes, chairs, that type of thing. Of course, we were thrilled about that because, we could use the furniture. It's been a while. With regards to the mattresses, that was kind of an afterthought. That was like, when you're getting new mattresses too. Now, we were involved in the actual furniture review, but we weren't involved in the mattresses. And at the time, I wasn't sure if the assistant administrator at the time was involved in it or not, because I know she was involved with the furniture. And I wasn't sure at the time that Sherry Ficaselli, who's our materials manager, was involved, because it was kind of quiet. It was like, I'm taking care of the beds, I'm going to try to get a good deal, and that type of thing. That was Kathy Allen. And she took care of the mattresses. There wasn't much input from any of us. We did not follow policy. We have a policy that when you test out any type of equipment, you have to trial it for like 30 days on several places in different units. As Mr. McClure had indicated, this was trialed in one residence room in the entire facility. And again, this is all things that we found out after the fact, after the after the new year began. So we started looking at the mattresses. First we thought, they're brand new, let's see what they're all about. But then we started getting complaints, and I actually, when we had a snowstorm, I stayed overnight, and I saw one of the mattresses, and it was just up against the wall, so I leaned against it to see. I said, these are new mattresses. It was like a rock. I couldn't believe how solid it was. I said, oh my God, who could sleep on this, much less lean against it? And that's when I had contacted, Mr. McClure, and also, Ms. Wondolowski, and let them know what was going on. And then we started looking in further. Then we were finding out that although the staff was trained to utilize the mattresses for a resident's weight distribution with regards to the air mattresses for those who had more wounds, we found that if you, and they were trained to adjust the knob for their weight, but if you turned it, I guess, too much or too quickly, the whole mattress domed. And when it domes, that means you'll slide right off the mattress. So people who normally would never have moved in the bed fell out of bed. And that's when the risk manager got involved, and that was the process that we're dealing with right now.
Do we have any recourse on the mattresses or anything?
Well, I did get in I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
Yeah. I did get in contact with the company who issued the mattresses, and they are checking each and every mattress to make sure that they're properly fitted and to make sure that this could have been a training area, and if it was, they're going to retrain them and also look at them in terms of our increased wounds. We're also going to get our wound care company involved in coming out a little bit more to help us deal with these wounds. So that's the process we're trying.
Retrain who?
Retrain the staff on how to adjust the air pressure for the person's weight on the mattress so it doesn't dome.
Can the individual client change it as well?
It's at the foot of the bed.
Oh, so they don't have any.
No.
So they can't operate it themselves?
No, they can't.
If we find out it's that they're actually functional compared, like they're working properly, but they're just a lower quality, are we just going to have to get new ones in? Oh, okay.
They're considered one of the best mattresses out there.
How many mattresses
I was just going to
there?
ask that. Go ahead. Great
Sorry,
minds.
I didn't
No,
look
go
at
ahead.
I think it's more than over 400 mattresses.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And how old were the ones prior that needed to be replaced?
They were about 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that about the lifespan of?
This is Sherry Ficaselli. She's our materials manager. She's going to give you a little more information than I am.
Hi, how are you?
Could you state your name?
Sherry Ficaselli. I'm
Thank you.
Materials Manager. Hello. Kathy had worked out the deal with Medline, excluded all of us on the mattresses and the beds. The only thing we were included on a little bit was the furniture. Mattress-wise, we purchased 309 of the alternating pressure. Of that, I believe 209 had pumps with it. So you don't necessarily need to have a pump with them to use them. It depends if you have what type of wounds you have or multiple stage 2s, then they'll put you on a pump. So yes, it's you can turn it yourself. I mean, if residents at the bottom of the bed, anybody can turn it, but they were turning them up too high. I know
Residents were doing that? Residents were doing that?
Well, I don't know necessarily, but I'm saying they can. I mean, it's accessible. Anybody could touch it to turn it up.
That
But
just
that's
seems
on
like
any pump.
It just
on any
seems like a
bed.
liability.
It's not, that's just like every pump,
Right.
no matter what type of style or whatever, what type of.
Actually, on this mattresses, because I know for wounds and also to preventative, that the pumps you mentioned, the mattresses are designed, there are mattresses designed now to automatically adjust occasionally to move the individual in the bed to prevent ulcers, to prevent these things from happening. Were these mattresses, and I know manually you can do that, but there are mattresses where you can set that so often, depending on the individual. I'm getting nods, so I believe that's true. That were these mattresses of the type, and you said they were expensive. It sounded like they were knockoffs, from Dan's Mattress City or something. But are they of the nature that you can automatically set them to do that type of thing as well?
So they have air cells in it, and when you hook it up to a pump, I believe it's 6 air cells, and they alternate.
Yeah.
It's like 3 and 3, like up and down, so you have that. I do have one printout. Would you
Sure.
have that? Okay.
Because if I'm not mistaken, haven't those type of mattresses, I thought I knew a lot until my mother went into a nursing home. Very reputable, my sister picked it, but Lord knows I really got an education over 2 years. And anybody that says how care is worse or better should spend a lot of time in nursing homes. There's no gold standard. That's why I've always been a fan of grayscale.
Here, let me
But the
pass
thing
this
is, I know that they've used these mattresses to help what we talked about earlier, the pressure. Are you aware of any studies, or have you, since we're on this mattress topic, and it looks like we may be looking at new mattresses possibly, how effective that is for pressure sores? The idea of these mattresses that could be set to self-move people, is there any information, is there any data out there yet on these mattresses?
I can ask the sales rep, and we can get that information.
I was just curious
for you.
because I know they're very being used
Oh, wait.
now.
Were you finished giving your report to us, though? I mean, did you have more data, or?
I don't. I know when Kathy purchased them, there's like a 9,000 series and a 12,000. She did go with the 12,000, which is the better one.
Yeah, but she's not an expert in the field.
I understand that.
No, I'm not. That's you. I think she may have overstepped her abilities.
She did, and we were kind of told to keep out of it, so we did.
No.
We didn't go through the proper trials, which I told them I will never, do that again. I mean, even though I was told not to and keep my mouth shut.
Say what? No, wait,
Yes,
just
yes,
repeat
yes,
that,
yes,
because
no.
I don't think I really just heard what you said.
You did. You heard what I said. I was told to keep my mouth shut.
So let me just, because I'm feeling like I'm having a little breakdown here.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody authorized these. Nobody requested these. Who was the one person who tried them out?
It was between Kathy Allen and then Jan Harris, who was our DON at the time. And Jan had come from Cedar Brook, and they still use these mattresses and are still purchasing them there, and what have you. But
Do they have those problems there?
as far as I know, no. As far as I know, no. So I'm not sure. I know Zach, our Medline rep, did come in and talk to first and second shift and went through and got signatures and told them how to operate the bed with the pumps and what have you. He will gladly come in again. He can give us any information you would like.
Who asked you not to say anything?
Kathy Allen.
Are we allowed to, again, I'm new, are we allowed to just spend $500,000 without any oversight?
I don't think so.
Like I said, it was between.
It has to be a state contract.
The
May I
thing
ask you a
with,
question? It's in the budget.
It might be under state contract.
So here's my hope. My hope is that the wounds are multifactorial, and the stuff that we're doing now we'll see a decrease March and April, and then we'll be able to know that it was coincidental with respect to the wounds in the mattresses. We're hoping. And Jennifer Stewart King, who you're going to meet, is here, and she's already working on that in her new position. Sue's going to introduce you to her. And then with the falls, I'm hoping with more training. And remember, we have a lot of people who work there. And training, I don't know that always makes its way all the way down to the shift, right, all the time. So hopefully with more training, it'll turn out that we'll use the beds properly, and that problem will be taken care of. That's my hope. And we started today, so I'm hoping that the next time we talk about this, the problems are answered.
But was this in the budget, I think was the
I don't know.
question.
We'll find out.
We
I'm
don't
sure
know.
it was. You can't just. I'm sure they found it. Graysdale's a big budget.
But Kathy Allen doesn't work here, doesn't work there anymore.
No, she doesn't. She was the director of administration in the previous administration.
Right.
you wanna say?
So there's no recourse we could take in terms of reprimanding somebody for this or seeking restitution.
Well, let's solve the problem and worry about
Thank you.
restitution in the future.
Well,
if there be any.
Well, I'm just worried about the people who have already fallen or experienced that. What recourse do they have?
Fortunately, I don't believe any of the falls resulted in too serious injury, did they? Not even any hospitalizations.
It was just a notice that they were falling
Oh,
out.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was seriously
No
injured.
one was hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my meeting.
I was worried
would
about
be-
that.
But we want to prevent that.
Yeah,
that's-
definitely.
It would be a training issue too, with new people as to how to adjust it.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
So it's not maybe just a mattress in and of itself, it's just training.
But you needed to know that this was an issue, and that we're working on it. Thank you. We'll move on.
Thank you. And Ray, is there anything, I'm sorry, Mr. Soto, is there anything else you wanted? Because I think Mrs. Ferraro did ask a question, moving on from this to the The turnover issues, yes.
Right. If we look on the second page, under the human resources nursing, we'll look to see what our turnovers were. Actually, our turnover in RN went down from 3% to 0.
Good.
Our LPN went from 3.7 to 1.9, and our CNA went from 3.2 to 1.8. So we are, like I said, using very active measures to hire new staff so we can get back to where we were with regards to our staffing. Any other questions?
Madam Chairwoman, I have a question.
Go
I've
ahead.
heard everybody. I've been quiet. I just want to. I want to compliment you. Graysdale, I've always felt gives great care to folks, and I've been on that wagon, and I'm staying on that wagon as long as I'm around. Concern I always had was finances. At times, from the fiscal end, it would be more of this is how we've done it for 50 years. This is how we're going to do it. I think that there's been a change, I can tell by what your presentation, in that attitude, that financial work and financial and the fiscal management is every bit as important as the caregiving. And I think because of that, I just want to applaud everybody involved. This is a big difference for me since the time I was back and another time involved. It seems like everybody's on the same page and realizing that. So I want to compliment you on that.
Yeah, we want to thank everyone at Graysdale for that, especially our
And the
finance
staff, who's
department
ever
and the
involved,
staff,
thank you.
and everyone who's really kept expenses down.
It helps as we go on with Graysdale because it'll always be an open issue. And I think at times Graysdale, there were ways Graysdale could have helped itself, but for whatever philosophical reasons, it didn't. But I think now you're looking at the whole package, and I think that'll be a benefit to Graysdale.
Thank you.
I'm finished, Madam Chairwoman.
Who has the copy of the bed that she gave?
She's going
Oh, thank you. I was going to ask if you needed it back. Thank you so much, and keep us updated on Mattress Gate, would you please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
She didn't.
I did. I did.
15 minutes.
Oh, man. He really cut into my time, didn't he?
He did, sorry.
It's okay.
Well, it was interesting, though.
That was important information.
And I
really had
hate to
get
say
through
that
tonight.
you were supposed to be on here as well, and I forgot. That's my fault.
I
'cause
just inserted myself.
I appreciate that.
So, before I go through my list, and I have a long list, but I will work through it quickly so we can finish on time. First, I wanted to say thank you to Lori for coming tonight. And I've told her, and I told you all last month, she's done an amazing job stepping into a role that, she had only been on her job as deputy for a day when she stepped into this. And she really has pulled her staff together and done a great job. So very appreciative of that. So, and briefly, I wanted to introduce Jennifer Stewart King. She is our new assistant nursing home administrator at Graysdale. So she just was going to chat for a minute, let you know who she is, and then we'll get back to the rest of the list.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Stewart King. I started with Graysdale back in 2005 as an aide. I was looking at becoming an aide on night shift because I went back to school. So I was getting my degree in psychology, worked on night shift in 3 to 11. Then I did my internship, and Lori was my social worker at Graysdale, so she trained me. And then I took over in admissions, and then I became the director of admissions. And so right now I'm doing 2 hats, but I love it. I love Graysdale. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Okay, sticking with the Graysdale theme. Ray mentioned we had a recruitment strategy meeting last week. He highlighted the most important things, I think, from that. The other thing we are working on, I'm working on my final piece of the tuition reimbursement proposal to eventually, sooner than later, present to you all. We did meet at Northampton Community College. Was that just yesterday? Yesterday. And that has opened up an entirely new area for us to recruit that has always been there, but we were never able to take advantage of that prior to now. So we are. Roughly speaking, for the tuition reimbursement program, we're hoping to have 10 LPN positions and 5 RN, not positions, slots, 5 RN slots for folks who are currently at Graysdale, employed there for a year, doing well, complete an application, determine if they're accepted into the program or not. So we are hoping to grow our own, as some folks have said, in terms of rewarding the folks who are there and doing well and want to further their education. Of course, on the back end, retaining them for at least a couple of years afterwards. So we're looking at a few different avenues for that, but I won't get into too many more details since we are on a time crunch. The only other thing for Graysdale is, I don't know if this was mentioned anywhere else, the deputy sheriffs have now started there during the daytime, which has been, I think, successful so far. Interestingly, though, the first few days, people thought there was a problem, that the sheriffs were there. So now that they understand that they're there to just have a presence and keep us all safe, it's going well. So we're continuing that. You had some questions last night for John, I know you had one, Mr. Cusick, from the Personnel Committee meeting. So would you like me to provide those answers now?
Sure. I think the question was, you're looking to add positions, and my question was, how many currently vacant positions do we have?
So for early intervention, we have 11 positions, 1 opening currently from someone who retired, but that should be filled in the next few weeks. And we have our Spanish-speaking caseworker is out on leave, and she'll be back in a few weeks. So this is information I got directly from the EI deputy administrator. Jess said they have been in need of an additional caseworker for at least a few years. The number of children that Northampton County has served with EI has increased by about 100 referrals, and Northampton County is currently in the 10th percentile for growth for early intervention. So there was this map of Pennsylvania with all the counties, and Northampton is one of the fastest growing populations of 0 to 3 for kids who will be in need of early intervention. So in terms of caseload size, the current caseloads are 80 to 95. They should be about 50 to 60. And that's factoring in the folks who are, the position that's going to be filled and the person on leave. So even with those 2 folks there, those are the numbers that they are at. My predecessor had approved the clerical fiscal position change, and she had known about this position that was asked for, but because administration was on their way out, she did not move forward with it at the time. So that was the answer for that question. But you had a question about the developmental program, or someone did, program specialist position as well. I can give you that information.
Well, again, I think the issue is, are we creating positions when we have vacancies at this time?
No. Technically, I suppose the answer is yes, but the current vacancy will be filled. Like, they've interviewed and they're waiting for that. It's just a long process. And so even factoring in that person being filled and up and running, and the person out on leave being back, even with those 2 positions back in full service, the caseloads will still be at 80 to 90 when they should be at 50 to 60. So that's the best I can answer that question. The developmental program specialist position, the question was in relation to waiver management and if that had increased. And what I was told from Wendy, who is their deputy, the waiver management responsibilities have steadily increased over the past 4 years. Starting in fiscal year 16-17, they had a dramatic increase as the Office of Developmental Programs prepared for changes in the new waiver renewal program, which was effective July 1 of last year. This had been discussed numerous times with Andy, whose last name I don't know, but he was the former MHMR administrator, who has been gone since July. He had assured Wendy that he was discussing the need for an additional position with my predecessor. And so when Andy left, Wendy, who was the deputy of developmental programs, went to my predecessor, and she had not heard about the need for any additional staff at that point. So whoever had the question about the waiver management, that was the information I got. Any questions? What, I have 2 minutes? 2 minutes?
Do you feel like you have time to do the children and youth update? Or
Yes, I had a couple other things too. So let me do the one announcement first. The Outstanding Senior Awards Ceremony is April 26th at 1 o'clock at the Wesley United Methodist Church on Center Street in Bethlehem for anyone who would like to attend. Mr. Warner attended last year, I believe, so thank you. So that is open to anybody who would like to go.
At 1 p.m.?
Say the date again.
Yes, April 26th at 1 o'clock. I've heard it goes from 1 to 2:15, followed by light refreshments. Mr. Warner would be able to attest to that. It is. There you go.
Good cookies.
Real quickly, drug and alcohol. We are, with Ms. Vargo-Heffner, exploring a couple different routes. So exploration stages, but one of them is a recovery high school for adolescents, teenagers who are in recovery. We have a meeting about that tomorrow. And we have a meeting next week regarding opening another recovery center for adults in the Northampton, Walnut Port, Danielsville area, where there's a huge need and not a lot of services at this point. And there's one other thing for drug and alcohol we're exploring. So for children and youth, the only update I really have at this point is we got our tentative letter back regarding the needs-based budget and got approval for a total of 11 new positions, 8 caseworkers, 2 supervisors, and 1 accountant. So they're in the exploratory phases about how to best utilize those. They already know some of the areas that they have a dire need for additional staffing. 9 of those positions would be funded at the 80-20 rate, and 2 of the positions would be 95%. So that's my super fast overview. Any questions?
I have a question, Madam Chairwoman. Am I recognized?
Yes.
All right, thank you. First of all, about staffing and positions being filled, I know, especially in children, youth, and families, there are times when positions, people are practically begging on the street. You have a bachelor's, would you take the test? Because the turnover is so fast, but at the same time, you have a vacancy, but you still may need a position somewhere in another area of direct care, but you don't want to use up that position and change it because you're hoping one day 8 people will walk in and you'll hire them. And the other thing is that the intangibles, it's very hard in human services, and Sue, and when we have time sometime, the stress, I mean, you can throw money at it all you want, but the stress and it's just a very difficult field, and whether it's Graysdale, whether it's children and youth, particularly children and youth and Graysdale. Those are areas where people can burn out real fast.
Sure.
So there's a lot that goes on, and I'm just going to make a suggestion, Madam Chairwoman, that going forward, could we consider saying, just like Personnel and Finance, that this meeting would start at the conclusion of the 5 o'clock meeting? That way, we'll have time to put it in the paper. That way, you're not jammed. Because human services, in my experience, sometimes they can get really involved in the committee meetings.
I was just going to say that. If anybody else on the committee agree, disagree?
It used to start at 5. We used to start this at 5.
So then how?
Like at 5:30, so Vaughn could make it.
Yeah.
And a job.
Just make it at the ending.
Conclusion of the.
Well, he was always at 5.
Yeah.
So put it back to 5.
Well, or the conclusion.
Yeah, the conclusion.
Should we say at the conclusion?
Yeah.
Because then that way we could share this space.
You could grant a 2-minute potty break and then kick it in.
Okay, so we'll do that for next month so you have more time.
Perfect.
Thanks. And anything else that you want to update us on next month, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your hard work, and I'd like to adjourn this meeting so people can get their break and before the next one.
Oh, okay. Brilliant. I was like, why are there so many kids here? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to stretch after that one. Jesus. This is
I got it, but I got the name of the counseling, and I gotta get it out the week before, so there's no way that I'm gonna be able to.